Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Wisdom Exchange number 29, where we'll be talking about breaking the cycle. What do I mean by breaking the cycle? Well, you might have heard of the word karma from the East, which literally means to take action. And you might have heard more in the modern terminology, living in the matrix or being programmed. So the mind is in such a way that it can be stuck in these loops. And if you've watched one of the podcasts, Illuminating Dialogues number 9, The Wisdom of Ayurveda, you'll notice when we're trying to improve our health, our well being, one of the first barriers to that is inaction, or it's taking the same action over and over and over like a robot. So, how do we break this cycle and how do we get out of this? So, first, we're going to talk about some context of the human being inside, but also how the human being relates to the universe. Because this is important, not to separate ourselves. The second is the way we view time. We're going to look at, again, when we're in the mind, we look at things linearly. When we're in the body, we're in so much more connected to reality. The third, I'm going to share you a story, and I think you can relate to this if you've been through university, school, or work. And then fourth, we're going to talk about grounding this practically. How really can you break the cycle? And then I'll share with you 5 tests that you can do to realize your personal reality and break out of that cycle. So without further ado, let's start. So, karma or action is simply a set of programmed actions. So, this can be passed down generationally. In the West, you see generational trauma. It can occur at many levels. Like if I waking up from bed very late for a week when I'm on holiday and I come back, I'm going to struggle to come back to my same tempo. Likewise, anything in my life, if parents or grandparents have done it before, and that has passed down to me since I was a kid, then I'm going to repeat that action, repeat that programming, repeat that karma. In the same way, we have natural cycles in us, not thought based, but also emotion based. The way we feel, the way we think, the way we are. We are nature. The laws of the universe regulate inside of us. The whole universe exists within cycles. We're not an exception. The way my cells are acting right now, that's why always when you're in meditation, you get that stillness of the mind. You realize there's things going into the cell wall, things coming out, the proteins are being made in the cells, the action potentials, the blood, oxygen, carbon dioxide diffusion. All of these are happening in a cycle, and these can be changed on your breath and your heart rate, on the synaptic impulses inside, right? I won't get too technical into the biomedical engineering of it all. The same way the planets are rotating around the stars, they're rotating according to the gravitational forces, and of course, they're changing as well. They're in constant flux. Right now, as we speak, the Earth is rotating. You're on Earth, I'm on Earth. Everything that we've ever known for human civilization is on Earth. And even the way the electrons in our bodies, in the whole universe, the way the electrons are moving around the atoms, that's in a certain cycle. So, what I'm trying to convey to you is when you're in your life, when you're waking up in the morning, when you're driving, when you're going to work, when you're going to the shops, when you're on the computer or scrolling on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, flicking through the TV, are you conscious of your thought patterns, of your actions, of your behaviors, even of your words. Are you conscious? Because if you are not conscious of these cycles, where did the cycles come from? And that means if we're not conscious, hello, one person watching, if we're not conscious, that means we're actually being programmed by certain thought patterns in the brain. So the way we view time is very important to come out of our thought loop. What you'll find is in very highly productive societies, so we talked about this in the West, if we want to use Ayurvedic language, we'll say Pitta and Vata has very fiery qualities, domineering qualities, qualities that are moving very fast like the wind. And so the way our thoughts are moving, likewise, they're moving very fast. And so the way we view time is very important in how our lives are playing out. Because if we view time as very linear, I'm going to achieve this goal tomorrow, next week, the week after, and we're just kept in this way, then the way the society is being programmed is just do this, do this, do this, eat, sleep, work, repeat, eat, sleep, work, Monday to Friday, repeat, go to the pub, Saturday, Sunday, finished, and then Monday, Friday again. And what you find that, especially in these highly urban environments, especially in the West and corporate settings, is that the life essence is wringed out of a human being. Your life is completely wringed out because you're in this cycle. It's very rigid. And so either you notice this or you're going to be caught in this continual accumulation cycle. So if you're not noticing you're in this cycle, what happens? Your time is just spent accumulating more wealth, more capital. You're spent just enhancing relationships all the time. But when you're accumulating things over and over, if you're only identified with your thoughts of the world, then this is based out of fear. Because what happens if you don't have wealth? What happens if you don't have these connections? Then you lack safety. So the whole structure of your thinking is based on the safety. Because you want to feel safe, then it generates thoughts and actions to be safe. So you have to obviously find shelter, you have to have connections, but you'll be caught in a cycle of keeping wanting to accumulate this or to enhance your self image, thinking that you're better because you have 100,000 instead of 50,000 or 200,000 instead of 100,000. But again, these are just thoughts of yourself. So what happens is when we're caught in that mindset, and I don't have to explain to you with thinking, you can just feel it. Do you feel alive every day when you're waking up? Or do you feel, oh, just another day? You're literally living on earth for a short time. You have a consciousness inside this body. But people in the society, just another day, back to the grind. You don't have to live like this. Really. That's a thought in your head. And so, just like the grey walls of our homes or our offices, so too our minds have become grey. So, the way we are internally, the way the society is internally, that's how we've manifested it externally. So because we're in this grinding mentality, we find ourselves in these locations that are very grindy. We're stuck on a screen, repeating the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and you get the point. So if you find yourself repeating things over and over and over and over and over, Like we said, the universe is in certain balance. It's all has a certain balance to it, and it's constantly changing and moving and adapting. But is your life like that? Is your life moving with life? Do you feel restricted? Because I know I do sometimes when I'm in certain situations. For example, during my uni days and school days, especially during uni days, we will go to lectures and just zone out. Time spent in the youth, 18 to 22, one of the best youthful times spent in the lectures, listening, zoning out of the body, even the head, and just doing that year after year after year, sitting on the bus, you know, not taking responsibility. And so what happens is that we're stuck in this cycle. So at my university time, my body knew I didn't want to be there, but the mind was slowly getting conditioned. So when you're sitting in a university lecture theatre and you're not enjoying that content, you tune out of your body and you just zone out into the mind. And so what happens is the mind starts to get very rigid. The thought patterns gets very rigid. They start to feel comfortable. But most importantly, the emotion is restricted. And so you don't confront fear. You don't confront that when it is needed. And so no flow happens. And so over time, your mind and your life starts to get more and more crystalline, more rigid. You get less creative. You start to get more trapped in the cycle, and one day just starts to repeat like the next, like the next. Even if you go to a holiday and you have a new experience, your consciousness level, the way you're interacting with life, is still rigid because there's no action, there's no fearlessness. So even if you have different experiences, if you're not like you got to that state, you were like this before, and then you felt powerless, 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 powerless. You cannot then expect just by having new situations to change your feeling and to feel alive. What you have to do is you have to reverse the powerlessness by becoming powerful. And so we'll get into that. So what you'll find is later from university, after that conditioning has occurred, at work, and I'm not saying everybody at university gets conditioned, but I'm saying the way it's set up, the way that certain system, academic structure system is set up, is if you just conformity to that system, that order, then you're gonna find yourself powerlessness. So the natural harmony in you, you're submitting that to the order outside, but you're not honoring the power and the harmony inside. If your body says, no, I don't want to live like that, then this is real. You have to listen to this. So, again, at work, then complaining. You'll find in a family setting, maybe when you gather for a party, Christmas party, you'll feel, oh, the economy is like this, and work is like this. I can't wait till I retire. Complain, complain. The whole life is about complaining, but the opposite of complaining is control over your inner world and taking action. And so the moment you hear somebody complain is the moment that you realize they are stuck in a loop and have not taken action to move outside that loop. Because when you, even if you're in the loop, but you take action, you do not longer complain because you've committed and you're already conscious of that. But if you're complaining, you're unconscious or semi unconscious of the karmic cycle or the loop or the programming that you're in. So the first stage of breaking this karma, breaking this action, whether it be in your life or generationally, is to realize in this situation that I'm in, do I want to be in this situation right now? In my deepest heart, in my deepest soul, no matter what philosophy you have, no matter this is good, you should do this, you should do that, you drop entirely everyone's expectation. So in Sanskrit, they talk about Kalima, and in Sikhism, we talk about the sword of Bhagavati. Um, I don't want to get so philosophical for you. In the West, Harry Potter, we talk about the phoenix, like in the Chamber of Secrets. But you just burn all of the expectation, all of the order, all of all of the voices outside, even the philosophies inside your mind, and you tune into the heart. What really do I want? And it's not really I. It's what does the life within me want? And what happens is your whole mental faculty, because all of the conditioning of your life is here. You basically take this and you put it to a side. You take all of this conditioning aside and you honor the life. So, you know, when people say inner child, imagine there's a life in you. There's a raw, like every animal has it. You have a cat, you have a plant, they're all growing, you know, like the tree, it's growing. You don't see the life in it, but you see the expression through the growing of the leaf. In the same way, when we take away our mind away, we allow this natural life to come. Then you realize, ah, this is the power to break any previous action and any previous karma or any previous cycle. So we talked about the context, about the whole universe operating in these cycles, either consciously or unconsciously. Of course, this is just the nature of things. Then we talked about the way we view time, linear. Then we talked about an example, practical example, watching TV, going to uni, repeating the same things over and over. Now, then we talked about this life inside. Now let's see how really to access that life inside, how really to live the life you want, how really to go towards that step. Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I doing these things? Why am I repeating these things? What do I want? Grounding into nature. You're surrounded, you are that person eventually with the 5 people you surround yourself by. The same way, if you surround yourself by nature, they're not thinking. The nature, like these plants, they are being. They're naturally just growing without thinking. But the problem is, humans think too much. And so we stop ourselves from growing because the thinking has become defective. They become stuck in these program loops. Whether the company you're in or certain dogmatic beliefs, I don't know. But you can get stuck in these loops. When you ground yourself into nature, your animalistic instinct, your natural instinct, taps into these intuitive cycles of life. So when you connect to the river, even the sound of the river, even noticing the flow of the river, it has a certain geometric pattern. That's why it sounds so good. That's why it looks so nice. It's a natural order, a natural rhythm. And in the same way, if your thinking is not in that natural thought process, that dissipates. And your natural being tunes in to that order of the tree. Even the way the trees grow, the pattern. We covered Fibonacci sequence in a previous Wisdom Exchange, the golden ratio, your golden ratio. And so when you're in the nature, you tune into your golden ratio. So you connect to the river, you connect to the trees, the outside world, all of the human unconscious thought mind. So if you ever heard of hive mind, if you're in a certain group, family group, you should do this, you should do that, complain, complain. If you're in a work group, some other thinking. If you're in another group, some other thinking. When you go into nature, all of these thinkings go like a dream, and you tune in to that natural cycle of life. And in the West, unfortunately, in urbanized areas, it's become very, very abnormal to do that because we're caught up here in the mind all the time. And so we're missing what is the force that moves the mind? Why do you want to do the things that you want to do? And this is very fundamental. This this thing solves all complaints because the complaints come from the mind and because we're not aligned with our true nature. So I'm not really here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to showcase how we can align to that naturalness inside. And so even the circadian rhythm, the way we wake up, the way we go to sleep, is totally not there anymore because of phones, because of lifestyle. But when we wake up with the sun, we go to bed with the sun, that natural energy wakes up and goes to sleep, wakes up and goes to sleep. So you're tuning into that natural energy. And what happens is you can start to give permission to the intelligence of the heart. So we talked about this before, also in another wisdom exchange. When we tap into this heart, we invigorate our true nature and passion and power. Then you realize, oh, what do I really want to do? What am I drawn to? And the key thing is giving permission. Because what happens is when people enforce these thoughts on us, or when we enforce these thoughts on us, ourselves, what we do is we don't give permission to the heart. So what we have to do is submit the mind and actually give permission. It's okay to do this. Because for some reason, society is not giving permission to follow this way. It's like, yeah, we have to achieve these metrics and we have to do things in this amount of time and achieve this in this amount of time, and blah, 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 blah. And then you just ring out the entire life of the party. You've just disconnected yourself from the essence of life. And so listening to the heart is very key here. Next, quieting the mind to move into the body. If you find that you cannot access your heart, quieting this, going into the nature, doing the meditation, not just once, but over and over and over, will then go to that essence where you can break the cycle. So that's why it's such importance in quieting the mind, because the mind produces the cycles, whether it's your conditioning or conditioning from outside. So when we tap into the heart, we start to create new insights. We start to generate new ideas. These cannot come from the mind only. The insights and ideas come when the mind is quiet. The life inputs idea, and the mind takes that energy and then turns it into thought. That's how it works. And so when we have that stillness, connecting to the life energy, life force energy, just like illuminating dialogue number 11, then we get that stillness, we go into nature, then you feel a slight swing. Oh, I want to write a blog. Oh, I want to build something. Oh, I want to make a video. I want to do a podcast. I want to paint. I want to dance. All of these intuitive things might start coming up. And that is the flame that can turn into a fire. That's what breaks the cycle. And so this is the stage, quieting the mind, going to the heart, noticing what is coming up for you, and then following that intuition. Because the mind might say, oh, where's that going? That's again linear. You have to keep quieting the mind and following the logarithmic. And just like the cycle, if you follow that intuitive logarithmic passion, it will take you outside of that cycle. Then here's where the real power starts. So before we were really in an intuitive mode, we were in a passive mode, disconnecting from the mind. But once we've kindled that flame, then we have to start putting our power, we have to activate our mind again in a conscious way. We have to, okay, what is this new cycle I want to create? How do I invest my mind into this blog or video? How do I want to replace the old cycle I've been doing? How do I want my relationships to look? How do I want my work to look? And then your old structure, you get your new intuitive insights that you've had, and you go right to the bottom of your old structure and you take it from the root and replace it with a conscious cycle. And so what happens is that conscious cycle, of course, it will change over time, but that's more aligned with your true essence. So you no longer feel like back to the grind. You feel like going forward to live. Not back to the grind, but forward to live. Because you're really aligned to the actions and the way of being of what you're interested in. I know it's very abstract, but I hope you're following here. And so to get to that stage, really the last thing is to create boundaries, to grow that little flame into a fire. Take back your sovereign control with conscious action. So then when we still have to tap into the nature, still have to meditate to kindle these new insights, like the passions that you want. Because remember, we started with just grinding with no passion. We had to slow down. We have to tap into a flowy state, access these new insights, and then put these new insights into force. Create the boundaries, create the control, take back your power, and build something that you really, really are proud to create in the world. So that is the, people can call it masculine, feminine, Shakti, Shiva, yin and yang, miri, piri. You get it? Linear, non-linear. So we're going to this very linear process. You're trapped in an unconscious cycle to breaking out the cycle in a non-linear fashion, finding out what's your calling, what you're interested in, using that intuition, and then bringing in back the control, bringing in back the mind, bringing in back the power. And then you become a very powerful but creative human being. So I hope that not only helped you to deprogram, break the cycle, break the karma, but also how to create a new cycle consciously, how to create a new karmic cycle of your actions, and how to reprogram yourself. So there was a lot in here, but I hope that really in this 30 minutes gave you the blueprint, gave you the permission, gave you the acceptance, and really the practical steps on how you can remove yourself from people or situations that are unconscious, how to put yourself into an environment in which to raise consciousness, and then, for example, the nature and the meditation. And then the third stage is realigning and putting yourself amongst people and resources that can establish that Raj, as they say, establish that kingdom of your consciousness, of what you're wanting to put into the world. So I'll leave it there, everybody. If you're interested in finding out the way you think, what motivates you, what is your personal reality, what personality do you have, then I've put together 5 free tests here. Bio 7 is one, which is scientifically backed. You can find out what in your core essence do you value. For example, my top one is curiosity. There's Myers-Briggs, which is very, very good in understanding what you're motivated by. There's also Enneagram test and 2 other tests. So feel free to do them. If you're interested to go deeper into this, understanding how to break your cycle, feel free to drop me a message on YouTube or Facebook or any other platform. Feel free to get in touch and I'll be happy to help. So with that, thank you again, everybody, for watching. I encourage you to look at your cycle in your life, how to break your cycle, and how to reform your cycle. So take care, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next Wisdom Exchange. Bye bye.